Hey, what's going on guys? One Up Eco here, and welcome to episode 8 of Scrimming Essentials, a weekly series where I'll be breaking down the basics of how to scrim in Fortnite. In this video, I'll be discussing the basics of how to box fight and how to apply your creative skills in-game. Boxfighting. Boxfighting can be characterized by a close quarters engagement where your mechanical skills, aim, and controlled movement will determine the outcome of a fight. The outcome of one box fight can either set you up for the rest of the game or back to the lobby. Here are some general mechanics that will help you in box fights. Always try to use the right hand peek when attacking your opponent. While this is a well-known and basic strategy, always keeping your opponent to the right of your camera will allow you to get a better angle on your opponent. Additionally, try to avoid going for 50-50 fights and shots. If you're trying to win a fight, pushing into someone's box or taking a risky shot isn't the best course of action. Additionally, always try to be aware of where your opponent is. Listen to their footsteps and also try to track them through their builds. If they're building out of wood, you can easily track them. This goes hand in hand with the next tip, which is to utilize good crosshair placement. For instance, if I was tracking my opponent through their builds, I'd keep my crosshair on their head at all times, so if they ever try to go for an edit, I'll be prepared with my shotgun out ready to shoot. Additionally, you should always pre-fire common edits and stay alert when you're in a fight. If you pre-fire common angles, it will prevent your opponent from making edits and they'll be scared to take peeks at you because they'll get punished. Additionally, always stay alert in a fight and never drop your guard. Always try to control as many building pieces as you can and try to exercise good piece control. Piece control is characterized by taking your opponent's builds before they can take it. I covered this in more detail in my previous video about how to W key. In order to learn how to box fight, let's analyze some pros and see what they do. The first pro that I want to talk about is the boxfighting champion himself, Plex. For the first tip, Plex always utilizes right hand peek when he's pressuring his opponent's walls. Plex knows how powerful the right hand peek is and it will always give him an advantage in fights. Utilizing the right hand peek will also allow Plex to back off from a fight if he needs to. The next tip is to place a cone inside your opponent's box instead of a ramp. The cone will trap them inside their box and will allow you to get the kill a lot easier. Plex never fully engages in a fight unless he's sure that he can win. If the fight doesn't look winnable, Plex immediately disengages. Additionally, Plex always sprays at his opponent's walls in order to force them to box up. If Plex takes damage in a box fight, he immediately disengages and tries to heal. Plex also never psychos into his opponent's box. He never tries to take a 50-50 or a fight that doesn't seem winnable. The next pro player that I want to talk about is Kanata. Let's take a look at his gameplay. Once Kanata takes his opponent's wall, he immediately pressures his opponent with his SMG in order to keep them boxed up. After knocking one of his opponents, Kanata continues to apply pressure on his other opponent because he knows he's weak and doesn't want him to run away. Additionally, Kanata always utilizes good piece control and map awareness. Always being aware of where enemies are gives him a huge advantage in fights and allows him to never be caught off guard. Often a box fight will turn into a build fight. To prevent this, continue to pressure your opponent with an SMG or AR to keep them inside their box. In stacked endgames, sometimes you'll be able to pick up frags by rotating ahead of zone and then looking back at low ground. If you do get the elimination, be careful of players near you as they could be going for the loot as well. A pro tip is to use your grappler instead of dropping down after you get an elimination if you don't know where players are around you. You can also use this trick to steal other people's loot. Building strategies. Here are some basic boxfighting building strategies. The first trick comes from pro player Arkham1X and involves placing a ramp next to your opponent's wall and then taking it. Once you have the wall, make an edit and place a cone inside their box. This trick will prevent you from taking most counter damage and will grant you a right hand peek into their box. This next trick is a pretty common strategy that works really effectively. Simply place a ramp next to their wall, edit the ramp, and then shoot the wall to safely take it. Your opponent won't be able to shoot you back. The next strategy I'll be covering is the reverse peanut butter classic. This trick was originally found by Plex and is an alteration to the famous peanut butter peek. To do it, simply edit the bottom left 3 tiles of your wall and stand in the middle of your cone. If you pull this trick off right, your opponent will only see the tips of your toes for a very short time before you reset the wall. There are so many different box fighting strategies to use, and I'll be linking some of my favorite and most helpful videos that I found in the description of this video if you want to see more strategies. Applying your creative skills into real games. If you're struggling to perform well in real games when you normally dominate in creative, you're probably being held back by your mentality. To fix this, let's take a look at some of these tips. Tip number 1. Analyze what you're doing wrong in your gameplay. I suggest looking back at your VODs or replays and notice what makes you play different in creative versus real games. Once you realize what's holding you back, try to change your mindset. For example, if you're more aggressive in creative because you know you'll respawn or simply try harder, try to reciprocate that same mentality into real games. You may die or lose several games, but don't be discouraged. If you take practicing seriously and try to learn from your mistakes, you will dramatically improve. Tip number 3, if you have a specific peak that you always do in creative, a high ground retake, or simply want to remind yourself a strategy that you sometimes forget to do in a real game, try to specifically practice that move or strategy in a real game. For example, if you need to practice a peak, try to do it in a real game in every fight you take. Within time, you'll have memorized it and will be able to perform the trick effortlessly in real games when it matters. This concludes episode 8 of Scrimming Essentials. Huge thank you to Sonic I Don't Know, Toshio Y25, Cutie Connor, Iyun33, Gabriel Sega, and everyone else who's using code 1UPEGO in the item shop. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please join me next week when I'll be covering inventory management, how to use utility properly, and what loadouts you should be using with your playstyle. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching and have a great time scrimming.